afternoon. Some of the South East GPs are still using high-rate phone numbers despite being banned from doing so nearly 2 years ago. The BBC has learned that 55 surgeries in Kent and Sussex have 0844 dial codes, which can cost up to 40 pence a minute. The Kent MP, Tracy Crouch, has been campaigning for practices in her constituency to change to local rate numbers, and she's now calling on other MPs to do the same. Rebecca Williams reports.
This was one of the most expensive.
Ron Edwards was a full-time carer for his wife Betty until she passed away at Christmas. It meant he had to make regular calls to his local doctor's surgery, but it had an 0844 dial code and became very expensive.
I was shocked when I saw my bill because this was something I thought should be free. And the trouble is that you have to wait, very often you have to wait such a long time, long in the queue, and that of course is adding to the expense.
In 2010, the Department of Health set out rules prohibiting the use of phone numbers that cost more than a local rate call. But in Kent, there are still 27 surgeries with 0844 dial codes, which are often the most expensive. Across the border in East Sussex, there are 10 practices and 18 in West Sussex. Now, here in Chatham, the Kent MP Tracy Crouch has been campaigning for surgeries to change to local rate numbers. So far, 3 out of 4 have done so, all except this one, the King's Family Practice. And today, no one from the surgery will comment on camera.
What we're finding is that people are actually being deterred from going to the doctors because they just simply can't afford to ring up the surgery to make the appointment.
The British Medical Association says many GPs are tied into contracts and can't change their numbers. But until the remaining 55 practices do so, calling for appointments could be costly. Rebecca Williams, BBC South East Today, Chatham.
Well, I'm joined now by David Hickson, who runs the Fair Telecoms campaign. And Mr. Hickson, though this practice has been outlawed by the Department of Health, I understand doctors are allowed to use 0844 numbers if that cost of the call isn't passed on to the patient. Do you have any proof that it is, despite that, being passed on?
Well, in theory that might be true, but it's nonsense because in every case, the way that the telephone companies work, the cost does get passed on. So, yes, if there were a case where it didn't happen, that would be fine, but there aren't any such cases.
And is part of the problem that the use of these higher rate numbers may have been banned, but there isn't really a penalty from the Department of Health for surgeries who continue to use them?
We don't want to talk about penalties, we simply want to talk about GPs being part of the NHS, contributing to its services, but following its principles in the letter as well as in not taking money from patients to run their surgeries.
And could surgeries argue that they are locked into contracts with higher rate providers, meaning that they have no option for a period other than to continue using that 0844 number?
They may say that. The truth of the matter is, if you need the advanced facilities on a non-geographic number, which they do under their present arrangements, you could do it with a number beginning 03, just the same, except that with 03 numbers, people pay the same cost as calling an ordinary number. The cost of the extra facilities is borne by the practice, as it should be, from their NHS funding.
OK, thank you very much for joining us. David Hickson from the Fair Telecoms campaign.